Okay, since we're talking about locks, I want to show you how to pick a lock and get around different types of locking mechanisms. And it may sound strange to teach you how to do this, but I feel like the only way to really understand physical security is to understand the ways to get around physical securities. And some of them are obvious, some of them are not so obvious. So here's some examples.
Today we're going to talk about how to pick a lock. Now you might be thinking, Brett, why do I need to know how to pick a lock if I don't plan on burglarizing somebody? Well, there's a few reasons. First, I think it's important that civilians understand how easy it is to bypass a lock without a key, because then you realize that locks really just provide the illusion of security. We think that when we lock our home at night or when we leave our home on vacation, that our stuff's going to be safe. But really, because it's so easy to bypass a lock, it really doesn't do all that much. And so by understanding the illusion of security that locks provide, it's going to force you to think about other tactics, other tools you can do to keep your home and your possessions safe. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is just a handy skill to know. You get locked out of your house without a key, that's not a problem anymore. Just whip out your lockpick set you keep in your wallet, and you're into your home. Reason number three, it's just a fun skill to know. I mean, really, this is like Jason Bourne, James Bond fantasies being fulfilled that I think we've all had as men at one time or another. So it's just fun to know how to pick a lock and know that you can do that.
The illusion of security is a key phrase.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to pick a pin and tumbler lock. These are probably the most common locks that you find on homes and apartments across America and across the world. So what's interesting about the pin and tumbler is that the basic design has been around since 4000 BCE, and this particular design that you see ubiquitous almost has been around since the Civil War, since about 1861. Yeah, it's changed a little bit. People have tried to make it a little bit more secure, but for the most part, we're using 19th century technology to protect our possessions and our loved ones. So I think it's helpful to understand how a pin tumbler lock works, because you'll understand like what you're doing whenever you pick a lock. So basically, the way a pin tumbler lock works, there's two parts to it, main parts. There's the house casing, which is this part right here, and there's the plug right there. And the way you unlock your doors, you have to rotate your plug with your key, and then once it rotates all the way, your door unlocks. On top of your plug, you can't see it because it's encased in the casing house, there are 5 or 6 holes that are drilled into the top of the plug. Inside those holes are a pair of pins. One is called the key pin, because that touches your key whenever you insert your key into the plug. And then on top of the key pin is another pin called a driver pin. So they're sitting on top of the driver pin is sitting on top of the key pin like that. Okay, so to unlock your door, what you have to do is you need to line up the gap between the key pin and the driver pin with the gap that exists between the cylinder house and the plug. And that gap between those two items it's called the shear line. So once you line up the gap between the pins with the gap between the shear line, you can freely rotate the plug and unlock the door. If you don't have the pins lined up correctly, then the driver pin will be bypassing, kind of be protruding between the shear line, making it impossible to rotate and unlock your door. So basically all we're doing is just lining things up in order to pick a lock. So that's it. It's pretty simple. So we're going to show you how to do it right now. All right, so the tools you're going to need to pick a lock, you're going to need a lockpick set. I got this lockpick set I keep in my wallet. It's a Bogota set I got from SiriPick. They also sell them at ITS Tactical. You can also find something similar like this on Amazon.com or just Google it. These are freely available to the public. You don't need a special license or registration in order to buy or own these.
$20 on Amazon, get you
so
one.
You can pick whatever type of pick you want. I have my go-to ones based on practice. So the two things you're going to need a tensioner wrench and a pick or a rake. You're going to understand why we call this a rake in just a minute. So the most important, what I think is the most important tool out of the two is your tension wrench. Because as you're picking locks with your pick and setting pins above the shear line, you need to be able to apply the right amount of tension or torque on your plug so that the plug will move just a tiny bit and the pin will just stay up there. And you just keep doing that slowly but surely until all of the pins are set and you can rotate. So applying the right amount of tension with your tension wrench is key to successfully picking a lock. Okay, so we're going to pick a lock. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your tension wrench and you're going to stick it in the bottom of the keyhole in the plug, like so. And what you're going to do with the tension wrench, you're going to apply just a slight amount of pressure on it. You don't want to do too much. If your tension wrench is bending like that while you're picking, you've got too much pressure. And what's going to happen is the pins are going to bind. They're not going to be able to get above that shear line. The driver pin's not going to be able to get above the shear line, and you're not going to be able to pick your lock. So you just want to be very ginger with it, just a baby's touch with it. So once you got that in place, you're going to take your pick. Right here I have a rake with 3 ridges. It's my go-to one. I feel like it's the easiest. I can pick most any locks with this one. Again, you'll find your own preference as you mess with things. And you're going to stick it in the hole, the top, like so. And now you're going to just apply slight pressure on the wrench, and you're just going to rake your pick back and forth. And what you're doing is you're just moving those pins up and down in the lock until you get the gap between the key pin and the driver pin lining up with the shear line. With some locks, I found it useful where just constant pressure on the wrench isn't very useful, doesn't do anything. So a back and forth sort of vibration wrench pressure works, and there you go. You see it's rotating, all the pins are lined up. Just keep rotating, and the door unlocked.
Wow.
Well, there you go. How to pick a lock. Pretty dang easy. One thing I recommend you go out and do is go to the hardware store, buy yourself a pin and tumbler lock, and just keep it on the couch on your desk at home. So whenever you're taking a break or you're bored, you can just bust out your pick set, and then practice picking. Again, lock picking is more art than science. You just have to get a feel for it, and the way you get that feel is just through lots and lots of practice. So go and do.
Okay, I think you get the point here. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to use a bump key, which is a little less elegant than the first way.
This week, no residence is safe because you are going to commit crime. This episode of Scam School brought to you by Netflix and GoDaddy. Warning, the following episode may contain eggs, gluten, soy, and crime. Welcome to Scam School, the only show dedicated to social engineering at the bar and on the street. I'm your host, Brian Brushwood, and this week I mean it. We're back to hardcore crime because you will go to jail if you abuse what you're about to learn, because we're about to find out how to use everyday objects that you have in your house right now to pick locks. All right, finally we get to learn from a true expert. Justin, how you doing? It's good to see you. All right, so we wanted to start off by talking about what kinds of locks are easy to either pick or bump, or there's a bunch of different ways to open locks, right?
Yes.
And what are the least safe that people don't realize aren't very secure at all?
Just about anything you can buy in a hardware store, Home Depot, any kind of department, anything under $75.
Really? So
Yeah.
pretty much everybody watching, their lock on the front door at home is easy to pick or bust into.
Right, and you can have an expensive lock, but it could have an inexpensive cylinder in it, so don't be fooled
Well,
by
explain to me that part. Talk to me about the cylinder. How does that's the center part of the lock?
Yes, that's where you put the key,
Okay.
and that's what operates the bolt, so you can lock and unlock it. But you can have different brand cylinders with high-end locks.
So you might have a high-end, very fancy-pants secure lock, but the cylinder's junk,
Right.
and then you can just pop it right open.
Yeah, like for instance, Baldwin is a very exclusive brand, very expensive, and you can have a very inexpensive cylinder in there.
Okay.
So the lock may be secure, might be a nice lock, nice looking, but it's still very easy to open.
Now, I've done a little bit of poking around, and I learned one way to open these locks, the one we're going to talk about first. But before we do, can you give me an overview? What are the different ways that you could get past a lock like this?
Well, there's traditional picking with these kind of pick tools here, which I'm sure everybody's seen on James Bond.
Yep.
TV, it's a pick gun, which is very popular. We can drill them.
Just drill it straight through?
Yeah, very easily. You can bump key it.
Okay, so that's the one I learned about was the bump key. So explain to me the principle, because I kind of understand and was able to clumsily mess with it, but what is the principle of how a bump key works?
It's actually very simple. You have these keys, and the keys will have spacing and depths. This particular one has 6 cuts on it, and there'll be 0 to 9 depths. So from the top to the bottom, it's spaced out in 1500ths increment, and it'll be 0 to 9, which gives you 10. So what they do is they cut all 9s on there, which is the deepest.
Okay.
And these little bumps, when you pull it out about a 1/16 of an inch, and you whack it with something, applying slight turning pressure, the tumblers all get hit at the same time and snap it.
So this is the lock.
This is a typical cylinder.
Okay.
This would be the housing, which up in the top chamber would be these springs.
Okay.
And drivers, which we call top pins.
So, and I guess all of the brass part here would be up in the cylinder.
Be up inside this.
All of this silver part would be what, down in
inside
here?
the plug.
Okay.
The cylinder plug.
And so it's only when they're lined up just like you see here, because you can see on that key. So you
Right.
put the key in, and it pushes all these.
It lines them up perfectly even, which creates what we call the shear line.
Okay.
And allows it to turn, and that's how different combinations work.
So, and I guess when you put in a normal key like this, everything gets lined up, and then it holds in that place, and you can turn it open like that.
Right.
But the difference is with a bump key.
A bump key, what you're doing is it's putting all the tumblers on, which is dropping them all below the shear line.
Okay.
And when you snap them all simultaneously, it creates a gap. It snaps the top pin and the spring, and will create a slight gap for
Just
that
for a split second, right?
and allows it to turn. It's like playing pool.
Okay.
You know, you can hit the ball stands still, and the other ball goes flying.
Okay.
Same principle.
So in this case, all of these are getting hit, and it's transferring the energy up into the spring, so all of these go up just long enough.
Just for that fraction of a second, because they're spring loaded, and if you hit it just right, it'll create that gap.
Dude, that's unreal. That's unreal. And so we actually have a faux door here. I was going to give it a try and see if I could actually pull off the bump key. Sound good?
You got it.
Now, normally, this is where we continue our graduate level course in scamology through the use of Netflix by suggesting another scam or con movie for you to check.
Okay, let's pause there. I think you see the principle of how a bump key works, but obviously the video goes on. If you want to learn more about how to use a bump key, lots of resources on YouTube. Now, the third one I want to show you has to do with hotel doors, just to give you a different example of the illusion of security. And I'm not even sure this is narrated. It's just going to show you a typical hotel door. I'm going to move me out of the way so you can see. Just like that. Yikes. And if you're paranoid and want to get around this, you just need a towel. That's all there is to it. Well, if locks on data center doors are easy to get around, what's another way to secure a data center? Where a very common way is to use a man trap, and by a man trap I mean this. No, that's a joke. What I mean by a man trap is this, that it's a little kind of telephone booth size. I know you have no idea what I mean when I say a telephone booth, but a little room where you have to perhaps swipe a badge to even get in it. It locks behind you, and the door in front is also locked. So until a camera or a person sees you and authenticates you, remember the definition of authentication, validating you are who you say you are. So not just that you have an identification card, but you are authenticating that person that they are supposed to have that card. Maybe it's a PIN code, maybe it's a swipe, but something to get in, and then you can't get out. That's the man trap. Somebody outside, a security guard sitting over here, has to hit the button to allow you to open up the second door and enter. And then the same thing for exiting, because you want to authenticate everybody who exits the data center as well.